What's up, guys? Chris Morgan, FCA, University of Louisville. Welcome to our weekly podcast, In the Huddle, where we ask current and former athletes into this huddle, into this space to share their stories about what God has done, what he's doing, and what he will continue to do. Today, I'm really excited. Today, former football player at University of Louisville and good friend, Victor Anderson. Vic, thanks so much for being part of our podcast today.
I appreciate you having me.
Well, hey, man, I want to jump right into it. Obviously, Louisville, hometown guy, St. X. Tell me what it was like growing up in the city of Louisville for you and your family.
I grew up in the heart of the West End down on 41st and Market. Wasn't the best of upbringings, but, we made the most of what we had. And one thing my father always taught me was, we'll figure it out. So growing up here was great. A lot of family here, a lot of friends. And then being able to go to the St. X institution was really big for me, to give me a little more outreach on life and to show me that there's, better things out there for us.
Tell me, obviously we know just sports, football, but like growing up, what other sports do you gravitate to? I mean, so many people play different things. What did you do growing up?
Actually, I was a baseball player, and baseball was my first love, and that's what my dad told me I needed to continue to play. But once I got to high school, things, really didn't work out with baseball and basketball. I was kicked off those teams, so I had to find a different avenue. So I started playing football. Played football my entire life, really, but I was never really that standout guy on the team. We had a ton of guys that were very talented, can run, break it open at any time, and I was just kind of, on the team, play linebacker, receiver, decoy kind of guy. But the older I got, I had to figure some other things out, and got to St. X, and they gave me the opportunity to play running back. So
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, you don't have to go very far for people to talk about St. X and Trinity. And you got some Male, and you got some of those. Got Ballard, powerhouses really of high school football. But really, it's St. X, Trinity that really kind of are that next tier. What was it like playing for St. X? Talk to us a little bit about just a high school career.
Yeah, I think actually, a lot of the schools around town had tremendous athletes, and I think the thing that really separated the Trinity St. X Male was a really good team when I was in high school, was just the discipline part of things and learning how to finish games. Because if you think about it, some of those public schools had better athletes than we did. We were just better structured. We'd have better discipline. We learned how to finish games, and guys worked hard from 1 all the way until 106. Our roster was very deep. But it was a great opportunity to have. My dad gave me the opportunity to be able to go to St. X, so that was something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, because that place has given me more life. And
yeah, well, people talk about discipline. You talked about the discipline and the structure. A lot of people run from that, and some people run to that, and some people don't know what they really need until they're actually in it. Was that something that you immediately was drawn to, or is that something that took a little bit of time to get used to, as far as like the discipline and people really speaking into you that way too?
Yes, no doubt. My dad, I was always taught to be respectful for, whatever reason, whether it was talking to an adult or respecting your peers. My dad made sure that I was always, a humble, respectful guy. But once I got to St. X, the structure was very different from my upbringing, as far as shirt and tie, making sure everything's tight-knitched, and being able to really take more of a militant type, approach to the way the teachers approached you, your coaches approached you, the weight room and everything of that nature. It was definitely a learning curve, and it was something that I was still getting used to the day I graduated from St. X, and then when I got to the University of Louisville as well.
Yeah, just in my experience of watching athletes, especially at the high school level, some people are just incredibly gifted. As far as athletic ability, they just go out, and you can tell that, they've worked hard for some of their things, but they're naturally gifted. I mean, obviously you were one of those guys, playing on state championship team.
Yes, sir.
You all-state junior year. Not that sports came naturally, but it looked like that was your safe haven. That was like your place where you got to just be free and be you. Talk to me a little bit about that. A lot of people just say that the sports and the diamond or the field or whatever, it's their escape, their place that they can just be them. Talk to me about, is that the same with you?
Yes, sir. No, that's a great way to put it. And, I coach kids nowadays, and the way I look at it, because football, I never really enjoyed playing football, but from my upbringing and being around, drugs and gangs and shooting and shootouts and things of that nature, I used football as a vehicle. And, that was my Mercedes Benz, my Bentley. And I had to cherish that because football gave me something that I don't feel like anything else in life could have given me. So I used that vehicle to kind of navigate, towards where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be in life. And as you said, that, just being naturally gifted, my high school strength coach, and he's coaching with me over at Holy Trinity, he says to this day, I remembered, coming in the weight room and you just saying, Coach, I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. And it wasn't more so because I didn't want to do it. It was just, I was going off my God-given ability. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I just know I didn't want to be like some of my peers and grow up in the streets and things of that nature because it was so easy accessible to me. I was fortunate to go to St. X and see kids that had, everything. And I was able to go home and see, not having anything. So I was blessed to have that opportunity to go and be around some of those families so that I could see what life is really like, being loved from every aspect. And not saying those kids had everything, because money's not everything, but it's a big part of being able to live and make sure your bills are paid and things of that nature. So St. X helped me in more ways than they can think of. Yeah, I think more of the hard working part of things, I never had that. And Coach House will tell you, it was days I'd come in the weight room and I didn't want to do anything. And it could have been a lot of what was going on at home. I had a lot on my mind, a lot on my chest. I started selling crack cocaine, I think at 13. I was stealing my dad's, crack rocks to try to help my mom take care of the other kids at her house. I grew up with my dad and just wanted my little brothers and sisters not to have to experience the things my older sister and I had to experience. So I had to try to learn hard work, and St. X tried to instill that in me, but I wasn't focused on that because of everything else that was going on outside of school. And it was hard for me because I wanted to be just like some of those kids that were there that knew they were going to go home and eat and be loved from every aspect of brothers, sisters, mom, dad. And that was just something that I was struggling with. And not a lot of people know that. They didn't know that at St. X. When I tried to tell them that I had things going on, the only thing I really ever heard was, "We understand." And that kind of took a toll on me because I felt like they didn't really understand.
Yeah. Not even just really understand, but like, not that no one doesn't care, but it's like they almost don't know what to say.
Yes, sir.
Like, and so, I think we automatically set these parameters. Like at 16, you're able, like you're grown up to now drive. And at 21, you're of the right age to be able to do this or to do that or whatever. But you had to grow up at a much earlier age. I mean, you already mentioned a lifetime of struggle just in your last few words that you said, of seeing the things that you saw at a young age. How does a young person at 13, 14, 15, how do you navigate through that? I mean, like what's...
Well, fortunately, the internet was something that was slowly starting to come around and be more of an asset. So I used it to search ways to be successful. At a young age, I knew I didn't want to end up like some of my peers, which were killed at a young age. So I had to find different avenues to navigate, how to be a businessman, how to have proper etiquette, how to approach a businessman, get a business card. After you get that business card, what's the best thing to do? Follow up 2-3 days later with an email. So I was trying to teach myself how to be a professional at a young age because I knew the streets wasn't something that I really wanted to do, but it was just so accessible and it was natural because that's what I saw on a day-to-day basis. My dad sold drugs. My mom was a drug addict. So as kids, we look up to our parents. And at that age, it's like, okay, I want to be like my dad, or do I want to be like my mom? Do I want to sell drugs? I want to be an addict. And I knew that just wasn't what I wanted to do because I saw what it was doing to my family. And I saw what it was doing to other people's families. Mm-hmm. So the internet allowed me to outreach and see that businessmen also come from struggle. So what are what can I do and put together steps to become successful versus just going out here being in the streets and the easy thing to do. And I tell these kids nowadays, the easy thing to do is to go out here and try to be a tough guy, gangbanger. The hard thing to do is make sure your bills are paid on time, make sure things are in line, make sure things are taken care of the right way. So that's something I try to pride myself on to this day. Continue to get business cards when you meet someone, whether it's an avenue you want to approach down the line or whether it's not. It's always good to really outreach towards those people because something they say could carry over to what you want to do in life, whether it's in your future profession or what they got going on nowadays. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen many, I guess, athletes, male and female, come through U of L that had struggles or issues, but I'm trying to think, and I don't know if I've met anybody that has maybe have come from such a rough background, but yet so respectful as yourself. You could probably have thrown any card down, any card, whether that's the things that you mentioned with drugs, alcohol. I mean, I think you even said at one point that you was like living in a car for a little bit, or living, just not knowing where you're going to live, or this or that. But you never stopped that from being. That never stopped you from being respectful to other people, whether that's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am. I don't think you ever used that as a crutch or a victim mentality.
Yes.
Where'd you learn that from? I mean, because it could, at any point you could have just said, hey, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't struggle with that. I would, even if being 51, those things still would come up in my world. How do you keep a positive attitude to say, I'm not going there, I'm not going to let that affect my next step?
To say it's hard, or to say it's easy would be a lie. It's something that I continue to learn on a day-to-day basis. But my father, which was near and dear to me, he told me one thing you're always going to be is respectful. And my father and I was living in my grandmother's house. We lived in a garage up the road from her for a number of years. It's kind of where I grew up. But when she passed away, my father and a cousin of ours was living in, or uncle of mine was living in my grandmother's house. And we weren't able to pay the bills. We'd be in there, no heat, no lights. And one thing he always told me is we're going to figure it out. I'd go to school and you see kids pull up in all these nice cars. I'm getting out of a car, the window doesn't raise, and got a blanket on. It's, like the weather is outside right now. But one thing he always said was, we will figure it out. So I pride myself on not allowing things like that to break me down, keep a smile on my face, and understand that we will figure it out. And the respect he instilled in me is something that I'm going to carry me throughout my life. And it was something that he said could make a big difference. So I tried to pride myself off being respectful. And there's a gentleman that, I'll approach, yes, sir, no, ma'am, things of that nature. Even at work, I say, yes, sir, no, sir. And, management, don't approach us that way. Just call us by our first name. Well, I was raised to say sir and ma'am. So my dad made sure that was something that I always used in my life. So I take that very serious. And
well, even just feeling like you've always got something to prove. I always got something to prove. That's with that mentality. So you leave St. X, obviously gifted to play the game. Recruiting, I know that there was probably, several schools. I don't think that you originally committed to Louisville. I think it was West Virginia.
West Virginia, my sophomore year, yes, sir.
So what did that recruiting process? I mean, you come from a lot of hard times, and now you're getting pampered with some stuff. Now it's not the NIL that's going on now, but you're getting paraded. You're getting an opportunity to leave this and go somewhere. What did that recruiting process look like for you?
It was new. To feel wanted was very new. Because like I said, my dad, my uncle was in that house, and when we were struggling to be able to take care of that house and pay those bills, my dad's aunt actually put us out of that house. And that's where we kind of rely back on, Dad and I trying to figure where we're going to go, what we're going to do. And so feeling wanted and having trust in others was something that was hard for me because my dad and I went through all of these trials and tribulations, and all he ever, mentioned, like I said earlier, is we'll figure it out. And to have a family member do that to us was very hard. And then my uncle move into the house with his wife and their family. It was something that was like, well, what are we doing wrong that we're not wanted by our own family? And he told me not to worry about that, son. We'll always figure that out. And I apologize, but he's of course he's no longer with us, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the recruiting process was something that I was a little shaky about, because having these coaches and call and say, express their wants for me coming to their school and being an asset to their team, I never really looked at anything of that nature. I just wanted to be successful. And I went to West Virginia camp, and I was, I think, one of 4 sophomores. It was a junior senior camp. They invited 4 sophomores, and I went out. We did drill work, and then we did 40s. And my first 40, I ran a 4.37, and Coach Rich Rodriguez, which is now back at West Virginia, he pulled me out of camp, took me up to the office, and offered me a scholarship right then and there. And it was like, so you're telling me like I'm going to be able to go to college? He's like, yes. He's like, this is an offer from us to let you know we want you. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
No one in my family's went to college. Need less, get to a Division I college and be able to be an asset on a team. And it's something that I knew I wasn't working hard at. I was going off God-given ability. And at that point in time, because I grew up Catholic, we'd go to church with my grandmother, and it was like, wow, this is surreal. Like, I'm going to make my pops proud. So it was, I was like, I'm all in. So we got back on the road, my goddad and I, Paul Passafume, and I was like, call him, let him know I want to come. I want to go. Like, I'm going to be able to get away from 41st and Market and then go make a difference. So it's like you said, it's not the NIL deal stuff now. I wish they could do some repays, some repayments or something of that nature. But it was just so real that I felt wanted. And it wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving myself right.
That's so good.
Because when my grandmother passed, she told me to stay away from the wrong people, and you can do whatever you want to do in life. And at that point in time, I was like, wow, she's right. And all I had to go out there and do is run. And I've been running for a long time, whether it was in the streets, getting into trouble. One thing I knew how to do was run. Yeah. And that's something that's changed my life, being able to run.
Yeah, well, I mean, you did it well. You did it well. I think still the all-time leading rusher is St. X. Still hold a lot of those records there. Didn't go to West Virginia. Ended up changing and flipping that, and wanted to stay home at the University of Louisville. What was the draw? At University of Louisville?
It was a number of things. Being around friends and family was something that was huge to me. It helped me out through a lot of the problems that I go through, that I still continue to go through. Hold a lot of stuff in because of my trust. And one of my godparents, Mom Barrett, told me that she felt like it'd be great to be able to be around friends and family, because that was something that was huge to me. And the more I thought about it, it was something that was very true. Being able to be around those that the few that I felt like I could trust and talk to, and things of that nature, was huge. So
if you had it all over again, obviously the hometown, I've always heard the hometown never really changes. Kind of stays the same. If it go back to a senior in high school at St. X, wearing your tie, and you could go anywhere, you still stay in Louisville, or you going out somewhere?
I say it all the time. It may have gone somewhere else, but that's not for me to really think about. I stayed where I stayed, and I made the most of the opportunity that I had. And that's something that I give all praise and glory to God to, because he was allowed me to make that decision and make the most of that decision. So actually, after my freshman year, I was going to transfer to Florida State. I went down to Tallahassee for about a month and stayed and talked to a few people down there and was thinking about it, thought hard, and I was just like, you know what, I'm where I am. Just make the most of it, be happy. And that's more or less what, made me stay and just continue to press on. So,
And obviously, you so gifted at the game of football, but when you come to college, everybody's gifted.
yes, sir.
Everybody's in their place. That they're coming from all over the map too, and they can run and they can hit and they can catch and throw. Looking back at your time at the University of Louisville, what stands out to you, and what's some highlights that you kind of grab a hold of?
Actually, during orientation, I got in some trouble, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to play or stay in school for that nature. Had a meeting with Coach Craig Thorpe, God rest his soul, but he said, the X happened at orientation, and you got in some trouble with some people, so we don't know. We may take it to the dean. We're not even sure you're going to be able to play. So at that point in time, I was like, okay, now it's just time to really tighten up. Okay, really time to tighten up. You got this opportunity. Do not throw it away. And at that time, it was like, okay, I know I don't want to go back because people are dying, people are in trouble, people going to penitentiary. So, and speaking on people going to penitentiary, a big asset in my life was my older cousin, great athlete. And he got arrested and didn't get to see me play any of high school. And all of his homies were there for me right when he got locked up. Made sure I stayed out of trouble. You're not going to be like the rest of these guys. You're not going to be on the streets. And they stayed by my side. It got me shoes, made sure I didn't have to do things that the other guys were having to do to get shoes, clothes, and things of that nature. And I truly blessed for those guys because he did 8 years. 8 years. So he got locked up a little bit before. And it was my senior year. And we were playing Male High School, at Male High School.
Okay.
And all I kept hearing was, Lil Vic. And I was like, man, I know that voice. But when I'm out there, I don't listen to anything. I don't turn around and I just kept hearing Lil Vic. And I was like, man, that's my cousin's voice. I turned around and I saw him. And I was like, oh man, it's time to play ball.
Yeah.
And I went out. I think I had 3 or 4 touchdowns and I had a heck of a game. And Mel was a darn good team.
Yeah.
Doug Beaumont and those guys, they had a great team. And it was surreal that I had the opportunity to go out and play in front of him and show him that everything that we've done at a young, because he used to help me, work out and do a little drill work and things of that nature. So it was surreal to be able to go out and play in front.
Well, I'm glad selfishly, I'm glad that you stayed at Louisville. I'm glad you made a mark, and I'm glad that that the name that you carry, people still, your name always outlives you, whether that's in a positive sense or a negative sense, and I'm glad that name has stayed intact, man. But let's talk post football. So you graduate, and what I've seen is that so many people put their identity in their sport. So
Yes,
you
sir.
talked about, man, running, that, you played the game. Well, now you're no longer playing the game. I think you had a little bit of a run at Canadian Football League.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you had some stuff with that. But at some point, an athlete they're no longer an athlete.
Yes, sir.
That you're a former athlete a lot longer than you're a current athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And so what kind of, was that a struggle for you?
Not at all. It was actually a relief. Like I told you earlier, I really never enjoyed the game. I just used it as a vehicle. And I had got traded up in Canada, and then I got some opportunities to go to camp down south of the border. That's what they call it up there anyways. But, man, once I was getting traded from Montreal, called my wife. I was like, hey, I'm going to get traded. She was pregnant with our first kid at that time. And I said, I don't think I really want to play anymore. And she's like, you sure? I was like, yeah, I don't think I really want to play. She's like, that's your decision, be happy for you whichever way you go. So called my agent back, and I was like, hey, man, you can tell them they can find someone else. I'm done with this. Because he told me once I got traded, he was like, hey, you got a flight tomorrow. I was here in the States. He said, you got a flight tomorrow I think it was like 6:30 in the morning, heading to Winnipeg. So I called him back and I was like, tell him they can find someone else. He's like, you sure? He's like, how about you think about it for a little bit? I was like, no, I'm good. I'm at peace with this. Because I knew football was just my vehicle. It wasn't really my identity. Yeah. But so many people thought it was my identity. But that really didn't matter to me because there were so many families that helped me at St. X. Past Fumes, the Bears, the Smiths. There's a number of them. I can go on. And even when I got to U of L, you know, Mr. George, Mr. Patino, all those guys, they were great assets to me and great role models. And once I was done playing football, I was at peace because so many people thought that's all I had. That's all I was going to be able to do. So once that finished up, it was like, okay, now I'm gonna figure out something that I want to do to be successful. Because
I knew that, but I love hearing that you were at rest and at peace by giving the game up because it wasn't your God, it wasn't your identity. I do want to talk about, you know, as I watch athletes, you guys go on. The goal is always that if you find someone, you want to outkick your coverage with marriage. And man, you did that. You did that in finding your wife, Shelby. You know, and the Bible says that a wife of noble character is her husband's crown. Like the most precious thing a king has is his crown. Mm-hmm. And so, as you being a husband now, that you have a great asset in your wife. Tell us about that. Tell us how that all started out. Tell us where you met. Yeah. You've been married, anniversary yesterday. Correct. So happy belated anniversary.
Thank you.
13 years.
Yes, sir. So I definitely outkicked my coverage. Growing up, I was always just to myself. Never went to dances or parties in college or anything of that nature. So actually saw her at a bowling alley one time, and I think she had a boyfriend at that time, but I told my buddy, I was like, man, I'm going to marry that girl. And I think she hit me up on Facebook, or I hit her up on Facebook. One way or the other, we're still in, dispute about that. But, just reached out and was like, hey, hope you and your boyfriend are doing well. And when she wrote back, she said, she didn't have a boyfriend. So I thought at that time, I was like, man, this is God's calling. Here it is. So I took my chance. We exchanged numbers. We met a few times. Well, actually, I reached out. She was going to the University of Kentucky at that time. Okay. And I reached out, drove down to Lexington a few times. And the first time I drove down there, I was like, hey, I'm outside. And she looked out the back window and was like, oh. But, I took that trip. It was a dry trip. I didn't even get to see her. She said her dog was sick, so she never did come out. So got back on the road, went back to Louisville and just kept pressing on because I knew it was something that God really had in store for me. And anything worth having is not easy. So I was fortunate that, she didn't open that door at that time because that showed me some patience, and patience is the hardest virtue. And if it's something you want, you just continue to press a little bit more and a little bit more. And fortunately, we went out on that first date. I think we met in Frankfurt and just hit it off from there. And it's been absolutely wonderful. You got your ups and downs in marriages and relationships, but that's really what makes it great. Working on things together and working on things with your kids and showing your kids not everything's perfect because God put us here to live in a way to continue to try to glorify him. And through trying to get to glorifying him and coming together as one on the top of that triangle, it's going to be a rocky road. And our kids see it, and we just continue to work things out and make things great and, pray together and try to teach our kids how to love each other. And, it's just been an amazing thing.
You talk about marriage being so sweet and working through things together, marriage also, you bring two different sides of growing up to one household. And, I think it'd be really cool to kind of speak into, like you said, for a long time, whether that be trust issues, whether that be situations, a lot of negative things that you saw growing up, that you bring that into a home that maybe the spouse didn't see that side. Mm-hmm. She didn't see all that. And now how do you deal with all that now? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does. And Actually, I think it might have been a couple of years ago, just kind of explaining to my kids, for that matter, that the way they're growing up is totally different the way I grew up. And took them down where I grew up, and they just started crying and saying, sorry, Papa, you had to grow up this way. And I told them, I said, girls, don't cry. This is just something that I went through so that I can make your life better. And, my wife actually, she's from here in town as well. And when you said bringing us both in the house, and there's two different sides of the story or two different lives coming together as one, it's a neat thing. And her brother, which is my brother-in-law, God rest his soul, was taken from us a few years back as well. And he was more of kind of like I grew up, just kind of just enjoyed life, living on the wild side. And he was murdered just a few years ago. So in a sense, we kind of had an understanding because, she saw her brother, and, my upbringing and my family members was kind of similar. So our girls having to experience not only the death of him, but the death of my father and the way they were taken from us has been very difficult.
Yeah, I know your father. I want to speak into that because he, obviously he's meant the world to you, and just even as you've gotten older, that the friendship even grew even more.
Yes.
That probably wasn't there earlier on. That as you got older, kind of did, and then football and life teach us a lot of different things, like words like perseverance and finish and tenacity and just trust and all of that, fight, all of that stuff. But you still learn those things when you get older.
Yes, sir.
And you being a husband and a father, still have to handle adversity. So talk about, just about your father. I know he means the world to you, and just if you want to speak into that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just about a year and a half ago, I just finished working over at the hangar. I think I worked about 23 hours that day. And that morning, my father called me. Like I told you earlier, that guy was everything to me. Even when we had nothing. And we had our rocky road once I decided to go and live with some families that helped me out to give me a better understanding, a better opportunity at life, a place to eat, a place to get my homework done and not worry and not have to listen to gunshots and things of that nature. We kind of had a little separation, a disbond, if you call it. And at that young age, I had to tell my dad, I'm like, I'm not doing this because I don't love you. I'm doing this because I want to be better in life. And it's going to help me right now, and it'll help you so you don't have to worry about me. So let's just give these families thanks for allowing me to be able to come and be around, eat, do my homework, have an opportunity to just see life at a different perspective. And my dad and I was trying to rekindle our relationship. We really were. And I go to my father's house when I got off of work, try to go every Saturday. He had like 6 strokes. He had no use of the left side of his body. So I go over and say, get up, do some, body squats so that you can continue to use your muscles because you don't want to just shut down. Call me on your way home from active day, because he went to active day on a daily basis to just try to get out of the house and be around people. Because if I go put him out right now, I'm not going to have a way to lock the door. And he never did call me back. He never did. And at that time, it was, I was supposed to be at the gym training kids at 4:00 that day. And I woke up a little late. Like I said, I worked a long shift. And got up. My phone was just blowing up. What's going on? By the time I get to the highway, answer the call, and they're like, get to your dad's house now. But I was rushing to the gym because I had some kids there waiting to work out. And all they just kept saying was, get to your dad's house, get to your dad's house. So I'm like, all right, I'm calling the kids that are at the gym and their parents and letting them know that I got to get to my dad's house. Things are going on. And by the time I got to Cane Run Road, the entire time on the highway driving, first off, I'm like, man, my foot wouldn't allow me to go. I think I was going like 40 miles an hour on the highway, and I just couldn't press the gas, go any faster. And I'm like, man, my body just don't feel right. But all my faith and glory I've given to God, I think he just completely took my life over at that point in time, and didn't want me rushing, didn't want me, because whatever happened had already happened, and there's nothing I was going to be able to do if I wasn't rushing or doing anything. By the time I got to Cane Run Road, I saw police officers turning down my dad's street, and I already seen yellow tape. I saw yellow tape, and I saw people everywhere. Yeah. And by the time I got there, it was too late, I guess. And I'm walking up. I parked my truck, and I just got out, and I started running up towards the apartment. And one of my cousins ran towards me. They was like, he's still in there, Vic, go in the back window, go in the back window. But I just couldn't move. Like, God had control of my body at that time, complete control of my body. And there was nothing I could do. And I did turn to go towards the back window, but then there was cops coming. And then all I heard was, he's right here, he's right here. And I'm like, what is going on? And my cousins are jumping, getting on a police car and trying to break in. And an officer came over and told me my dad was dead. My best friend. When I had nothing, even if we weren't getting along, I could call him and he could calm me down. When I was broke down about my mom, I could call him, he can calm me down. One person that from zero to where I was, I could call him, and he just had the right words to just calm me down. And at that point in time, I was like, now you got to carry that name, Victor. And you got to care it for you and him. So everything I do nowadays, I just try to cherish him. And any bit of hostility that I have, I just try to flip it around because I want to make him proud. And I stayed out there.
Well, you do, man. You do. And I want to, thanks for sharing that part, but also just the you do make him proud. You're a good son, a good man. Very respectful man, and you said a couple of times just about God, that God will, one of my favorite verses is cast all your cares upon the Lord and he'll give you rest, and that in a turbulent life, sometimes it's often that we want rest. So how does someone dealing with what you just shared, I'm not in that situation. How do you trust God with all that? That all things work together for good for those that love him. How do you reconcile that?
So really it's simple, but it's hard. And like I said, I stood out there by that yellow tape until they brought my dad out in that body bag, and I yelled, I'm going to make you proud. I love you. I'm so sorry this happened. But what my dad did for me that day is what Jesus Christ did for this entire world. My dad knew if he called me what I was going to probably have to do to get him out of that house. And I think my dad was so at peace with life. He was so at peace with life, and he was so proud of me. But I never knew if he was proud of me or not. I really didn't. Yeah. No, him nor my mother. And when he didn't call me back, I just had to sit and just kind of analyze things. I'm like, man, why didn't he call me back? Why didn't he have me meet him at the house? And the true reason is because he had so much faith. That Bible sat next to him every single day. No matter his wrongdoings, anything of that nature. I feel like he didn't call me back because he wanted me to live my life. And if I would have came and tried to get him out of that house, things probably would have been different. Dad would probably still been alive, but I'd probably been downtown on Jefferson Street. And he sacrificed.
You know, I've asked a question to probably everybody that I've had on this podcast is like, and at different times, there's probably been different answers in my own life. But who is Jesus to Victor Anderson at this part of your life?
He's a headstone. He's everything. When I'm here, he pulls me there. And I'm actually doing Bible in 365 right now, the Bible in 365 days. And I just try to relate and put everything that he's saying to real life perspective. And the more that I'm listening to that, I kind of understand more now the things you go through and why you go through them. Life's a big puzzle, and it's a puzzle that some days you might not find the right piece, but when you get up tomorrow, you may find 10 pieces. You know, one day you may not do anything right, but tomorrow you may find 10 things to do, correctly. And Jesus gives me the strength to just get up and keep going. The way he did my dad in that apartment, it was brutal. When I walked in that apartment and saw tables broken, and to understand what my dad had to endure when he was in there fighting a 200 plus pound, and he's disabled, 140 pounds, can't use the left side of his body. But one thing he always said, joking around, is I got one good lick left. And I just pray that he was able to get that lick off. And Jesus gives me the strength to keep a smile on my face, work with kids, teach these kids that if you have faith, you have everything. And I had one kid ask me, what is faith? I told him it's having the strength to believe in something when there's absolutely no proof. And that was something that I struggled with growing up. Oh, you say this, you say that. Who's ever seen God? You don't have to see something. And nowadays I know he's real. So I had someone ask me, do you believe? And I was like, not really, but I know. Because everything that I've gone through, there's got to be something.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. So Jesus is the head of my life. But without Jesus, things would be different.
Oh yeah,
Things would be a lot different.
Yeah.
And my reactions would have been a lot different after what happened.
Yeah.
But he's given me the strength to smile, to understand that my dad's in a better place. My dad sacrificed so that I can have more life, because he sacrificed so that we can all have life. And
That's strong, man. Last question I want to be able to get to you, like, what if you could go back and maybe talk to I don't know, 15, 18-year-old Victor Anderson of what you know now, what would you say? If you could sit him down across from you and look at him, what would you say?
Really, I don't regret anything or anything of that nature, but one thing I would tell my younger self was be patient. Be patient, because patience is the hardest virtue. It was the hardest virtue for me to follow anyways. But when you're patient, things come in abundance. And I've learned that. And being able to go back to school and get my aviation maintenance license, and now, working on all the fleet we have over at UPS as an aircraft maintenance mechanic. And now, being patient, I've been able to start my own business. I got a trucking company that I just started. So now I can help other people. And it's just something that God has allowed me to understand, that helping others helps you in a tremendous way. Just like you helped me in college. You helped so many of these college athletes. It means more than you know, Chris.
Yeah. Well, man, I love you, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for who you are, what you stand for. I'm proud of the husband that you are, the dad that you are. And you're an overcomer. Man, you are. You're an overcomer. Situations, whatever they may be, have come your way, and you've always risen above that. And so, man, I'm thankful for you. I love you. I'm always with you. I'm always proud of you. And if you ever need anything, man, you reach out.
Yes, sir. I will.
appreciate you coming on this podcast with us.
Appreciate you more, and I appreciate everyone for listening. And just continue to pray for me as I'm struggling and trying to get through this and get through court, and just continue to give glory. Everyone listening out there, when you're struggling, pray. Really hit your knees, because the answer may not be now, it may not be tomorrow, but that answer's there. but you got to keep your faith.
That's good. Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.